The thing about insomnia is that it gives you time to notice things you'd rather not see, like how your wife of 15 years suddenly started sleeping with her phone face down on the nightstand, or how she's been taking the 40-minute showers after coming home from client meetings that supposedly ended at 6 but somehow kept her out until 10:30. My name is Connor Dempsey, and I'm a carpenter by trade, ex-cop by choice, and apparently a fool by marriage. At 3:17 in the morning, I was sitting in my kitchen in Medford, Massachusetts, drinking lukewarm coffee and staring at receipts I'd found crumpled in Stephanie's purse. One was for lingerie, size small. My wife wears medium. The other was for a hotel room reservation under S. Dempsey and T. Melman. Troy Melman, her boss. The guy with the perfect teeth and the BMW who'd been coming to our barbecues for 2 years, shaking my hand and complimenting my burgers while apparently planning to screw my wife. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Stephanie appeared in the kitchen doorway, wearing the silk nightgown I'd bought her for Christmas. The one she claimed was too fancy for everyday wear. "Can't sleep again?" she asked, her voice carrying that practiced concern that sounded more like annoyance. "Just thinking," I said, folding the receipts and slipping them into my pocket. She moved to the refrigerator, and I watched her reflection in the stainless steel door. Even at 35, she was stunning. Blonde hair that cost more than my monthly truck payment, legs that still turned heads, and green eyes that used to look at me like I was the only man in the world. Now they looked through me like I was furniture. "Thinking about what?" she asked, grabbing a bottle of water. "Work stuff. The Henderson renovation is behind schedule." It was a lie, but then again, our whole marriage had become an exercise in competitive dishonesty. She nodded and headed back toward the stairs, pausing at the doorway. "Oh, I forgot to mention, I'll be late tomorrow night. Troy wants to discuss the Morrison account over dinner." Troy, always Troy. I watched her disappear upstairs, listening to her footsteps cross the bedroom floor, waiting for the soft click of the door closing. Then I pulled out my phone and called the only person I trusted completely. "Paul, it's Connor. I know it's late, but I need to talk." My brother Paul lived 20 minutes away in a house that looked like a conspiracy theorist's wet dream. Security cameras, motion sensors, and enough ammunition to supply a small army. He was convinced the government was monitoring his internet searches, but he was also the most loyal person I'd ever known. "What's wrong?" Paul's voice was instantly alert. He'd been a light sleeper since the Middle East. "Stephanie's cheating on me." Silence, then, "You sure?" "Hotel receipts, lingerie that doesn't fit her, late nights with her boss. Yeah, I'm sure." "That blonde witch," Paul muttered. "I never liked her. Too perfect, like she was always performing." "I need evidence. Real evidence. Something that'll hold up in court. Come over tomorrow night. We'll figure this out." I hung up and sat in the dark kitchen for another hour, thinking about the last 16 years of my life. I'd met Stephanie when I was still wearing a badge, back when I thought I could save the world one arrest at a time. She was a sales assistant then, ambitious and hungry, and she'd looked at me like I was her ticket to something better. Maybe I was. Maybe that was all I'd ever been. The next evening, I told Stephanie I was helping Paul with some repairs. She barely looked up from her laptop. "Have fun," she said, not meaning it. Paul's house sat on 2 acres of woods, isolated enough that the neighbors couldn't hear us talking. Or screaming, if it came to that. He met me at the door with a beer and a grim expression. "I've been thinking about what you said," he told me as we settled in his living room, "about needing evidence. And remember when Dad died and we cleaned out the old house? We stored some of Mom's stuff in my attic. Boxes of papers, photo albums, some old cassette tapes." I nodded. Our mother had died when I was 25 and our father had followed 5 years later. We'd kept their belongings out of sentiment more than necessity. I was up there yesterday looking for some old tools, and I found something weird. Paul stood up and walked to a cabinet, pulling out a shoebox. A tape labeled "Con Truth" in Mom's handwriting. My blood went cold. "What's on it?" "I don't know. I thought you should hear it first." Paul had an old cassette player in his workshop. We went out there and he slid the tape into the machine with the reverence of someone handling evidence at a crime scene. The sound quality was poor, but I recognized my mother's voice immediately. "Connor, if you're hearing this, then I'm gone, and you've probably discovered that the women in your life aren't what they seem." Her voice was tired, defeated. "I made this tape because I need you to know the truth about your father and me, about what really happened in our marriage. I felt Paul's eyes on me, but I couldn't look away from the cassette player. Your father was a good man, but I wasn't a good woman. I had affairs, Connor. 3 of them over the years. I lied, I manipulated, I gaslit him when he got suspicious. I hid my phone, stayed out late, bought lingerie for other men. I made him think he was crazy when he was actually seeing the truth. My hands were shaking. Paul reached over and paused the tape. There's more, he said quietly. Play it. My mother's voice continued. The signs are always the same, Connor. Late nights, hidden phones, sudden interest in appearances, new underwear, defensive behavior when questioned. If you're listening to this tape, it means you've recognized these signs in your own life. Don't ignore them like your father did. Don't let yourself be destroyed by a woman who sees you as disposable. The tape ended with a soft click. Paul and I sat in silence for several minutes. Jesus Christ, I finally whispered. She knew, Paul said. Somehow, she knew this would happen to you. I thought about Stephanie upstairs in our bedroom, probably texting Troy right now, planning their next rendezvous. The parallels were impossible to ignore. I need to catch her in the act, I said. We'll figure out how. The next morning, I called in sick to work and followed Stephanie. She drove to her office building downtown, but instead of going inside, she walked 2 blocks to the Marriott. I parked across the street and waited. 20 minutes later, Troy Melman's silver BMW pulled up to the valet stand. I watched him get out, tall, tan, wearing a suit that probably cost more than I made in a week. He handed his keys to the valet and walked into the hotel like he owned the place. My phone buzzed. A text from Stephanie. Meeting running long. Don't wait up. It was 11:30 in the morning. I drove home and spent the day planning. By the time Stephanie returned that evening at 8:45, claiming the meeting had included dinner, I was ready. How was your day? She asked, kissing my cheek with lips that had probably been on another man 6 hours earlier. Productive, I said. I'm learning a lot about people lately. She gave me a strange look, but didn't ask what I meant. That night after she'd gone to sleep, I searched her purse. Hidden in a zippered compartment, I found a second phone, a cheap burner with no case or identifying marks. The text history made my stomach turn. Troy, can't wait to feel you again, Stephanie. Connor's working late tomorrow. Come over at 2. Troy. What if he finds out? Stephanie. He won't. He's too stupid and trusting. Besides, I'm already talking to a lawyer about the divorce. I'll take half of everything in full custody of Jamie. Jamie, my 16-year-old son. The only good thing to come out of this marriage. The kid who still looked at me like I was a hero, who helped me with carpentry projects and asked my advice about girls in college. I took photos of every message, then put the phone back exactly where I'd found it. The next morning, I called my childhood friend Maura Lynn, who'd become one of Boston's most ruthless family lawyers. Connor Dempsey, she said when she answered. This is either a social call or you need someone destroyed legally. Which is it? The second one. I'll clear my schedule. Maura's office overlooked Boston Harbor, and she'd decorated it like a war room. Law books, framed victories, and a coffee mug that read, I turn husbands into ex-husbands. She was 42, Korean-American, and had never lost a custody case. Show me what you've got, she said, settling behind her desk. I laid out everything. The hotel receipts, photos of the burner phone messages, a timeline of Stephanie's lies. Maura studied each piece of evidence with the intensity of a general planning an invasion. This is good, she said finally, but it's not enough for what you want. What do you mean? You want custody of Jamie. You want to keep the house. You want her to walk away with nothing. She leaned back in her chair. For that, we need her to do something spectacularly stupid in front of witnesses. Like what? Like confessing to adultery and parental alienation on camera. Like threatening you in front of people who matter. Like showing everyone what she really is when she thinks she's winning. Maura pulled out a legal pad and started writing. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to throw a party. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. I would invite Stephanie, Troy, and their entire social circle to what I'd call a surprise anniversary celebration at Donovan's, the upscale bar where Stephanie liked to impress her clients. I'd tell everyone it was a chance to renew our vows and celebrate 15 years of marriage. What they'd actually be celebrating was the end of Stephanie's carefully constructed lies. I spent the next week preparing. Paul helped me set up hidden cameras around the house, not for the party, but for what would come after. I also had him create a digital presentation that would make Stephanie's betrayal impossible to ignore. The guest list was crucial. I invited Troy and his wife Karen, a sweet woman who taught third grade and had no idea her husband was a serial cheater. I invited Stephanie's best friend Ashley, the Instagram influencer who'd been encouraging Stephanie's affair while posting inspirational quotes about following your heart. I invited our neighbors, Stephanie's co-workers, and several people from my old police days who could serve as credible witnesses. Most importantly, I invited my son Jamie. The night before the party, Stephanie was practically glowing with anticipation. She thought she was about to be publicly celebrated while privately planning my destruction. "This is so sweet of you," she said, modeling the new dress she'd bought for the occasion. "I can't believe you kept it a secret." "I'm full of surprises," I told her. That evening, I made one final call to Paul. "Everything ready?" I asked. "The presentation is loaded and ready to go, the cameras are active, and I found something else in Mom's stuff. Another tape. You're going to want to hear this one after tonight." "What's on it?" "Just trust me. After you destroy Stephanie's life, this tape is going to make perfect sense." Saturday evening arrived gray and drizzly, which seemed appropriate for what I was about to do. Stephanie spent 2 hours getting ready, transforming herself into the perfect picture of a devoted wife. She even practiced her surprised expression in the mirror. We arrived at Donovan's at 7. I'd reserved the back room and told the staff I'd be giving a special presentation. The bartender, a guy named Mickey who'd known me since my cop days, had agreed to help with the technical aspects. The guests arrived in clusters. Troy came with Karen, looking confident and relaxed. He shook my hand and complimented my choice of venue, never suspecting that in 30 minutes, his marriage would be over. Ashley arrived in a cloud of perfume and self-importance, immediately starting to film everything for her social media. Jamie showed up with his girlfriend Emma, both of them dressed nicely and clearly excited to be included in an adult event. My son had inherited my height in his mother's eyes, and looking at him reminded me of why I was doing this. By 7:30, everyone was there. I stood up and tapped my glass. "Thank you all for coming," I said, my voice carrying easily across the room. "Stephanie thinks this is just a simple anniversary party, but it's actually much more than that." Stephanie beamed at me, probably thinking I was about to propose renewing our vows. "Marriage is about trust," I continued. "It's about honesty, commitment, and putting your family first. It's about being faithful to the person who loves you most." Murmurs of agreement around the room. Troy was nodding along, the hypocritical bastard. "So, tonight, I want to show everyone what 15 years of marriage really looks like." I signaled to Mickey, who dimmed the lights and turned on the large screen TV mounted on the wall. The first image that appeared was a photo of Stephanie and me on our wedding day, young and happy and full of hope. "This is how it started," I said. "Two people in love, making promises to each other." The next slide showed our house, Jamie as a baby, family vacations, all the normal markers of a successful marriage. "And this is how it's going," I said. The screen filled with a photo of the hotel receipt I'd found in Stephanie's purse. Then came screenshots of the text messages from her burner phone, blown up large enough for everyone to read. The room went dead silent. I heard Stephanie gasp, but I didn't look at her. I kept my eyes on Troy, watching the color drain from his face. "Troy Melman," I said conversationally, "you've been sleeping with my wife for 8 months. You've been using company resources to pay for hotel rooms. You've been lying to your wife Karen, who's sitting right next to you." Karen made us sound like a wounded animal. Troy started to stand up, but I wasn't finished. "And Stephanie," I continued, finally turning to look at my wife. She was frozen in her chair, her face white with shock. "You've been planning to divorce me and take our son away from me. You've been telling your lover that I'm too stupid to figure out what you're doing." The next slide showed more text messages, including the ones where Stephanie had discussed her legal strategy with Troy. "The thing is," I said, "I'm not as stupid as you thought." That's when all heck broke loose. Troy lunged at me, probably thinking he could stop this with violence. He was younger than me and spent more time at the gym, but I'd been in more real fights than he'd had hot dinners. I sidestepped his rush and caught him with an uppercut that lifted him off his feet. He crashed into a table, sending drinks flying. Karen started screaming, not at me, but at him. "How could you do this to us? How could you do this to our children?" Stephanie finally found her voice. "Connor, stop this. You're humiliating me." "I'm not humiliating you," I said, rubbing my knuckles. You humiliated yourself. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. Ashley was still filming, but now she looked uncertain. Several of Stephanie's co-workers were staring at her with disgust. The neighbors were whispering among themselves. Jamie stood up, his face red with anger, but he was looking at his mother, not at me. Is it true? He asked her. Are you really cheating on Dad? Stephanie tried to reach for him, but Jamie stepped away. Honey, it's complicated. It's not complicated, Jamie shouted. You either cheated or you didn't. Troy was back on his feet, red streaks running from his nose. This is insane, he said. Connor, you can't just... I hit him again, this time in the stomach. He doubled over, gasping. I can't what? I asked. Defend my family, expose the truth, show everyone what kind of man you really are? Karen had grabbed her purse and was heading for the door. 22 years, she said to Troy as she passed him. 22 years of marriage, and this is what you do? The party was disintegrating into chaos. Stephanie's co-workers were filing out, clearly embarrassed to be associated with her. The neighbors were gathering their things, whispering about what this would mean for the property values. But I wasn't done yet. There's one more thing, I announced, my voice cutting through the noise. Stephanie, tell everyone about your plan to frame me for domestic misuse. The room went quiet again. Stephanie's eyes went wide. What are you talking about? She whispered. I pulled out my phone and played a recording I'd made 2 days earlier when I'd confronted her about the burner phone messages. In the recording, she'd threatened to make up whatever story I need to tell to get custody of Jamie. You were going to lie to the police, I said. You were going to claim I hit you. You were going to destroy my reputation and take my son away from me, all so you could start a new life with this piece of crap. I pointed at Troy, who was still trying to stop his nosebleed. Jamie looked at his mother with pure disgust. You're sick, he told her. You're actually sick. Stephanie started crying, not the elegant tears of a wronged woman, but the ugly, desperate sobs of someone whose world was collapsing. I never meant for any of this to happen, she said. Yes, you did, I replied. You planned all of it. The only thing you didn't plan on was getting caught. The last of the guests were leaving now. Even Ashley had stopped filming and was backing toward the exit. Within minutes, the room was empty except for me, Stephanie, Jamie, and Troy. This isn't over, Troy said, trying to salvage some dignity. Yes, it is, I told him. Your wife is going to divorce you. Your company is going to fire you for sleeping with a subordinate and misusing company funds. And if you ever come near my family again, I'll break more than your nose. He left without another word. Stephanie was still crying. Connor, please, we can work this out. We can go to counseling. No, I said simply, we can't. Jamie put his hand on my shoulder. Dad, I want to live with you. I know, son, and you will. The house felt different when we got home that night, emptier somehow, even though Stephanie was still there. She'd locked herself in our bedroom and was making phone calls. Probably to lawyers, probably to her sister, probably to anyone who might help her salvage something from the wreckage of her life. Jamie and I sat in the kitchen, sharing a pizza and trying to process what had happened. I should have seen it, he said, picking at his slice. The way she was always on her phone. The way she dressed up for work meetings. I should have known something was wrong. It's not your job to police your mother's behavior, I told him. That was my responsibility and I failed at it for too long. You didn't fail, Dad. You trusted her. That's what you're supposed to do when you love someone. Smart kid, too smart for his own good sometimes. My phone rang. Paul. How did it go, he asked. Better than expected. Stephanie's finished, Troy's finished, Jamie's staying with me. Good, because I think you need to come over here tonight. That second tape I found, you need to hear it before Stephanie tries to make her next move. I looked at Jamie, who was listening to my side of the conversation. Can it wait until tomorrow? No. Trust me on this one, Connor. Bring Jamie with you. He needs to hear this too. 20 minutes later, we were sitting in Paul's living room while he loaded another cassette into his old player. This tape was labeled Stephanie Warning in our mother's handwriting. When did she make this? I asked. Based on the other stuff in the box, I'd guess about 6 months before she died. She was already sick, but her mind was still sharp. The tape started with our mother's voice, weaker than it had been on the first recording, but still clear. Connor, if you're listening to this tape, it means you've discovered what Stephanie really is. I made this recording because I need you to know that I saw the signs years ago, even before you married her. I felt Jamie tense beside me. Stephanie reminds me of myself at that age, beautiful, ambitious, and completely without conscience when it comes to getting what she wants. I watched her manipulate you during your engagement, the way she isolated you from your friends, the way she made you feel like you weren't good enough for her. The tape continued. I tried to warn you, but you were in love, and love makes men stupid. So I decided to wait and document everything I observed about her behavior. I kept notes, Connor. Detailed notes about her lies, her manipulations, her affairs. Affairs? Jamie whispered. Plural? My mother's voice answered him. Troy Melman isn't her first. There was someone else 2 years ago, a client named David Morrison. She was sloppy then too, but Connor was working long hours and didn't notice. I noticed, though. I followed her. I took pictures. Paul paused the tape and pulled out a manila envelope. Inside were photographs. Stephanie entering a hotel with a man I didn't recognize. Stephanie kissing the same man in a restaurant parking lot. Stephanie buying lingerie at a store downtown. There's more, Paul said, restarting the tape. I also discovered that Stephanie has been planning her exit strategy for years. She's been hiding money, Connor. Small amounts at first, then larger sums. She has a secret bank account under her maiden name with almost $50,000 in it. My blood ran cold. $50,000. Money that should have been going toward Jamie's college fund, toward our mortgage, toward our future. But the worst part, my mother's voice continued, is what she's been telling people about you. I heard her on the phone with her sister talking about how she married beneath herself, how she deserves better than a dumb cop turned carpenter. She called you a stepping stone, Connor. She said you were useful for providing stability while she built her career, but that she'd always planned to trade up eventually. The tape ended there. The three of us sat in silence for several minutes. Grandma knew all along, Jamie finally said. She tried to protect us the only way she could, I replied. Paul pulled out another envelope. There's one more thing. Your mother left instructions. She wanted you to use this information when the time was right. Inside the envelope was a letter addressed to me, along with copies of bank statements, photographs, and what looked like a private investigator's report. The letter was brief. Connor, by the time you read this, Stephanie will have shown her true colors. Use this information to protect yourself and Jamie. Don't let her destroy you the way I destroyed your father. You deserve better. You both do. Love, Mom. I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope. We need to get this to Maura first thing Monday morning, I said. What about tonight? Paul asked. Stephanie's probably planning her counterattack right now. As if summoned by his words, my phone started buzzing. Text messages from Stephanie. Connor, we need to talk. I'm filing for divorce Monday morning. I'm going to fight for custody of Jamie. You humiliated me tonight, and there will be consequences. I showed the messages to Paul and Jamie. She's scared, Paul observed. Scared people make mistakes. What kind of mistakes? Jamie asked. I was starting to get an idea. A dangerous idea, but one that might end this whole mess once and for all. The kind that finished them permanently, I said. We drove home to find Stephanie waiting in the living room, fully dressed despite the late hour. She'd been crying, but she'd also been planning. I could see it in her eyes, the calculating look she got when she was working an angle. We need to talk, she said. No, we don't. Connor, please, I know you're angry, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can start over. Jamie made a disgusted sound and headed upstairs. I heard his bedroom door slam. There's nothing to fix, I told her, and there's no starting over. You cheated on me, you lied to me, and you were planning to frame me for domestic misuse. We're done. I never said anything about domestic misuse. I played the recording again. Her voice filled the room, talking about making up whatever story I need to tell to get custody. You recorded me without my consent, she said. That's illegal in Massachusetts. Actually, it's not. Massachusetts is a two-party consent state for phone calls, but not for in-person conversations in your own home. I checked with my lawyer. Stephanie's face went through several expressions: surprise, anger, fear, and finally, calculation. Fine, she said. If that's how you want to play this, then that's how we'll play it. But you should know that I've been documenting your behavior too. Your drinking, your anger issues, the way you've been neglecting Jamie. What drinking? What anger issues? She smiled, and for the first time, I saw what my mother had seen all those years ago. The complete absence of human warmth behind her beautiful face. The drinking problem you're going to develop. The anger issues you're going to start showing. The neglect that's going to become obvious to everyone who matters. You're going to lie. I'm going to do whatever it takes to protect my son from his unstable father. That's when I knew she was going to try to destroy me completely. Not just take half my assets in a divorce, but actually destroy my reputation, my relationship with Jamie, my entire life. But I also knew something she didn't. I had 50,000 reasons to believe I was going to win this war. Stephanie, I said calmly, you just made a very big mistake. What mistake? You assumed I was the same man who married you 15 years ago. The same man who trusted you, who believed your lies, who let you manipulate him. I stepped closer to her, and she actually backed up a step. But I'm not that man anymore. That man died tonight at Donovan's when you showed everyone what you really are. The man standing here now is someone you've never met before. Someone who knows exactly what you are and exactly how to stop you. You don't scare me, Connor. I should, I told her, because unlike you, I'm not planning to lie or cheat or manipulate anyone. I'm just going to tell the truth. All of it. And the truth is going to destroy you. She stared at me for a long moment, then grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Where are you going? I asked. Somewhere I can think clearly. Somewhere I can plan my next move without looking at your smug face. Don't bother coming back tonight. I'm changing the locks. She spun around. You can't do that. This is my house too. Actually, I can. Massachusetts law allows it in cases of adultery where there's evidence of planned abandonment. Check Section 208 of the Domestic Relations Code. It was a bluff. I had no idea what Section 208 said, but Stephanie didn't know that. This isn't over, she said. Yes, I replied. It is. You just don't know it yet. After she left, I called a 24-hour locksmith and had all the exterior locks changed. Then I called Maura and left a voicemail telling her about the new evidence Paul had found. By the time I went to bed, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Control. Tomorrow, I was going to start rebuilding my life. And Stephanie was going to discover that some mistakes can't be undone, no matter how beautiful you are or how well you lie. The war was just beginning, but for the first time, I knew I was going to win. Monday morning brought 3 things: a call from Maura, a visit from the police, and a news van parked across the street from my house. The police arrived first. 2 officers I didn't recognize, both young enough to be my kids back when I was wearing a badge. Mr. Dempsey, we need to ask you some questions about an alleged domestic disturbance. I invited them in and offered coffee, which they declined. The older of the 2, maybe 35, with the kind of mustache that screamed rookie trying to look experienced, pulled out a notebook. Your wife filed a complaint yesterday evening. She claims you threatened her and that she's afraid to return home. Did she mention the part where she's been cheating on me for 8 months? I asked. Sir, we're just here about the alleged threats. I showed them the recordings I'd made, the text messages from Stephanie's burner phone, and the photos Paul had found in our mother's belongings. By the time I was finished, both officers looked uncomfortable. This is a civil matter, the younger one said finally. We can't arrest someone for adultery. But you can arrest someone for filing false police reports, I pointed out, which is what my wife just did. They left without filing any charges, but not before warning me to keep things civil. 20 minutes later, Maura called. I heard about the police visit, she said. Stephanie's lawyer called me this morning. They're going to play hardball. What kind of hardball? They're claiming you have anger management issues and a drinking problem. They're going to argue that Jamie isn't safe with you. Based on what evidence? They don't need evidence yet. They just need to create enough doubt to get temporary custody while the divorce proceeds. Then they'll manufacture evidence. I thought about Stephanie's threat to document my drinking problem and anger issues. Can they do that? They can try, but we have something they don't expect. Your mother's investigation. I've been going through the files Paul brought me. Connor, this is a gold mine. Bank records, photographs, witness statements. Your mother documented everything. Witness statements? She interviewed 3 of Stephanie's co-workers who knew about the affairs. She talked to hotel staff who recognized Stephanie. She even got statements from neighbors who saw strange cars in your driveway when you weren't home. I felt a surge of gratitude toward my dead mother. Even from the grave, she was protecting her family. What's our next move? We go nuclear. I'm filing for emergency custody of Jamie based on parental alienation and moral unfitness. I'm also filing a motion to freeze all marital assets, including that secret bank account Stephanie doesn't know we know about. When? This afternoon, but Connor, you need to be prepared for Stephanie to escalate. Cornered animals do desperate things. She was right. At 2 o'clock, a news van from Channel 7 pulled up outside my house. By 3, there were 2 more. Someone had called the media. I watched from my living room window as a reporter I recognized from the evening news set up in front of my house. Then my phone rang. Mr. Dempsey, this is Sarah Chen from Channel 7 News. We understand you're involved in a custody dispute with allegations of domestic violence. Would you like to comment? No comment, I said and hung up. The phone rang again immediately. Channel 5 this time, then Channel 4. Someone was feeding the media a story about me being a toxic husband, and they were eating it up. Jamie came home from school to find reporters camped on our front lawn. What's going on? He asked, coming in through the back door. Your mother's trying to destroy my reputation before the custody hearing. Can she do that? She can try. That evening, I watched myself on the 6 o'clock news. The story was titled, Local Man Accused of Domestic Violence in Bitter Custody Battle. They showed footage of my house, mentioned my history of anger issues, and interviewed a family friend who claimed I'd always been controlling and possessive. The family friend was Ashley, Stephanie's Instagram influencer buddy. Stephanie is terrified, Ashley told the camera, managing to look concerned while making sure her good side was facing the lens. Connor has always had a temper, and she's afraid of what he might do if he doesn't get his way. I called Maura immediately. I saw it, she said before I could speak. Don't worry. This is actually good for us. How is this good? Because now we have evidence of a coordinated campaign to destroy your reputation. Conspiracy, defamation, maybe even criminal harassment. We're going to bury them. When? Tomorrow. I've scheduled an emergency hearing for 10 a.m. Bring Jamie. He's old enough to testify about what he's witnessed. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything that had led to this moment. The 15 years of marriage, the gradual erosion of trust. The moment I'd realized that the woman I'd loved was actually a stranger who saw me as nothing more than a convenient stepping stone. At 3 a.m., I was sitting in my kitchen again, drinking coffee and staring at my phone. I had 17 missed calls from reporters, 43 text messages from friends and neighbors, and 1 email that made my blood run cold. It was from Troy Melman, sent from what was obviously a fake email account. Connor, you think you won, but this is just the beginning. Stephanie and I are going to destroy you. We're going to take your son, your house, your reputation, everything. You should have minded your own business. I forwarded the email to Maura, then called Paul. They're threatening me, I told him. Good. Threats are evidence. Are you recording everything? Everything. Then let them keep digging their own graves. The next morning, I put on my best suit and drove to the courthouse with Jamie. The media was there too, but this time, I was ready for them. Mr. Dempsey, one reporter called out. Do you have any comment on the allegations against you? I stopped and looked directly into the cameras. Yes, I said. I have evidence that my wife has been cheating on me for 8 months, hiding money in secret bank accounts, and planning to frame me for domestic misuse to win custody of our son. I also have evidence that she and her lover are now threatening to destroy my reputation through a coordinated media campaign. All of this evidence will be presented in court today. The reporters started shouting questions, but Jamie and I walked into the courthouse without saying another word. The hearing was everything Maura had promised. She presented our mother's investigation like a prosecutor laying out a homicide case, methodically, thoroughly, and with devastating effect. Stephanie's lawyer, a thin man with nervous eyes, tried to object to the evidence, claiming it was obtained illegally. But Maura had anticipated this. Your Honor, Mrs. Dempsey's mother-in-law was a private citizen conducting a legal investigation into suspicious behavior. All of her evidence was obtained through legal means, public records, surveillance conducted from public property, and interviews with willing witnesses. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, reviewed the bank statements showing Stephanie's secret account. Mrs. Dempsey, can you explain why you've been hiding assets from your husband? Stephanie's lawyer whispered something to her, but she ignored him. I was protecting myself, she said. I knew Connor would try to take everything if he found out about my relationship with Troy. So you admit to adultery? I admit to finding love with someone who appreciates me. It was the wrong answer. The judge's expression hardened. And Mr. Melman's threatening email to your husband? Was that also about love? Stephanie looked confused. She obviously didn't know about Troy's late-night message. Maura presented the email along with phone records showing that Troy and Stephanie had been in contact constantly since the confrontation at Donovan's. Your Honor, Maura said, this is a clear pattern of harassment and intimidation designed to force my client to accept an unfavorable settlement. The judge studied the evidence for several long minutes. Then she looked at Jamie. Young man, you're 16, old enough to have an opinion about where you want to live. What do you want? Jamie stood up. I want to live with my father, Your Honor. My mother lied to us for months. She was planning to lie about my father hitting her, which never happened. She chose her boyfriend over our family. I don't trust her anymore. The judge nodded. Mrs. Dempsey, I'm granting temporary custody to your husband pending a full hearing. You'll have supervised visitation rights only. I'm also freezing all marital assets, including the account you opened under your maiden name. Stephanie started to protest, but her lawyer grabbed her arm. Furthermore, the judge continued, I'm issuing a restraining order preventing you and Mr. Melman from contacting Mr. Dempsey, except through your attorneys. Any violation of this order will result in immediate arrest. We walked out of the courthouse into a crowd of reporters. This time, they were asking different questions. Mr. Dempsey, how does it feel to be vindicated? Are you planning to sue for defamation? What's next for you and your son? I looked into the cameras and smiled. What's next is rebuilding our lives without liars in them, I said. That evening, Jamie and I ordered pizza and watched the news coverage. Every channel was running the story of how Stephanie's lies had been exposed in court. Is it over? Jamie asked. Not yet, I told him, but we're winning. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This isn't finished. I showed it to Jamie. Mom, he asked. Probably. Or Troy. What are they going to do now? I thought about everything Stephanie had already tried. The lies, the media campaign, the false police report, the threats. I don't know, I said. But whatever it is, we'll be ready. I was wrong about that. I wasn't ready for what came next. None of us were. The attack came at 4:30 in the morning, 3 days after the custody hearing. I woke up to the sound of breaking glass and the smell of gasoline. Someone had thrown a Molotov cocktail through our living room window. I grabbed the fire extinguisher from the hallway and put out the flames before they could spread. But the damage was done. Scorched carpet, smoke damage, and a message spray-painted on what was left of our front window. Wife beater. Jamie stumbled downstairs in his pajamas, coughing from the smoke. Dad, what happened? Someone tried to burn down our house. I called emergency, then Maura, then Paul. The fire department arrived first, followed by the police, followed by Paul carrying a shotgun. Anyone hurt? Paul asked, scanning the street for threats. We're fine, but they're escalating. The police found the remains of the Molotov cocktail in our front yard, a beer bottle filled with gasoline with a rag stuffed in the neck. No fingerprints, but the security cameras Paul had installed caught something interesting. Silver BMW, the investigating officer told me, reviewing the footage on his laptop. Partial plate visible. We'll run it through the system. I already knew whose BMW it was. Maura arrived as the fire department was finishing up. She took one look at the damage and pulled out her phone. Judge Morrison, this is Maura Lynn. I need an emergency hearing this morning. Someone just firebombed my client's house. Yes, I'll have the police report. 9 a.m. works. She hung up and turned to me. We're ending this today. The hearing was held in the judge's chambers instead of open court. Present were myself, Maura, Stephanie, her lawyer, and Judge Morrison. The police report was still warm from the printer. Mrs. Dempsey, the judge said without preamble, where were you at 4:30 this morning? At home, asleep. Can anyone verify that? Stephanie's lawyer started to object, but she cut him off. I was with Troy, at his apartment. The judge made a note. Mr. Melman owns a silver BMW, correct? I don't know why that's relevant. Maura slid a photograph across the table, a still image from our security camera showing a silver BMW driving slowly past our house at 4:15 a.m. This vehicle was captured on security footage 15 minutes before someone threw a firebomb through my client's window, Maura said. The partial license plate matches Mr. Melman's vehicle registration. Stephanie went pale. Troy wouldn't do something like that. Then you won't mind if the police search his car for gasoline residue, the judge said. It wasn't really a question. 2 hours later, Troy Melman was under arrest for arson and attempted homicide. The police found gasoline in his trunk, along with 3 more beer bottles and a box of rags. They also found something else, a notebook detailing a plan to frame me for domestic violence, including staged photographs and forged medical records. Stephanie's involvement was documented in detail. Your Honor, Morris said when we reconvened that afternoon, my client and his son were nearly ended last night by Mrs. Dempsey and her lover. This goes far beyond adultery or even fraud. This is attempted homicide. Stephanie's lawyer had abandoned her by then, claiming a conflict of interest. She sat alone at the defendant's table, looking smaller and more desperate than I'd ever seen her. Mrs. Dempsey, Judge Morrison said, do you understand that you're facing criminal charges in addition to the divorce proceedings? I didn't know Troy was going to do that, Stephanie whispered. I never told him to hurt anyone. But you did participate in a plan to frame your husband for domestic violence? Violence. Mrs. Dempsey, I asked you a question. Yes, Stephanie said finally, but only because... There is no because, the judge interrupted. You conspired to commit perjury, fraud, and what amounts to kidnapping by attempting to gain custody through false accusations. The judge looked at her notes, then at me. Mr. Dempsey, I'm granting you full custody of your son, effective immediately. I'm also awarding you the marital home and all assets except Mrs. Dempsey's personal belongings. Furthermore, I'm recommending that the district attorney pursue criminal charges against both Mrs. Dempsey and Mr. Melman for conspiracy, attempted arson, and attempted homicide. Stephanie started crying again, but this time, no one cared. Your Honor, she said through her tears, I have nowhere to go, no money, no job. You should have thought of that before you tried to burn down your family's house, the judge replied coldly. As we left the courthouse, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months, peace. Jamie was waiting for me on the courthouse steps. Is it over? He asked. It's over. We drove home in comfortable silence. The house still smelled like smoke, but it was our house now, completely ours. That evening, Paul came over with Chinese takeout and beer. We sat in the kitchen, avoiding the living room where the carpet was still scorched. So what now? Paul asked. Now we rebuild, I said. New carpet, new windows, new life. What about Stephanie? I thought about my wife, ex-wife, sitting in a jail cell, facing charges that could put her away for years. I thought about Troy, who'd thrown away his career and his freedom for a woman who'd probably throw him under the bus the moment it became convenient. Stephanie made her choices, I said. Now she gets to live with the consequences. Jamie raised his Coke can in a toast. To living with the consequences. Paul and I clinked our beer bottles against it. To living with the consequences. 3 weeks later, I was installing new hardwood floors in our living room when the doorbell rang. Jamie answered it and came back with a manila envelope. Divorce papers, he said. I opened the envelope and read through the final decree. The marriage was officially dissolved. I got the house, custody of Jamie, and most of our assets. Stephanie got nothing except a criminal record and a reputation that would follow her for the rest of her life. There was also a letter from Stephanie, written from jail. Connor, I know you'll never forgive me, and I don't expect you to. I know I destroyed everything good in my life because I was selfish and stupid and thought I deserved better than what I had. I was wrong about everything, but especially about you. You were never too stupid or too trusting. You were just a better person than I was. Take care of Jamie. He's the only good thing either of us ever did. I read the letter twice, then threw it away. That night, Jamie and I grilled burgers in the backyard and talked about his college plans. He wanted to study engineering, maybe follow in his grandfather's footsteps and become a builder. You know what the best part of all this is? He said as we watched the sun set over our neighborhood. What's that? We don't have to pretend anymore. We don't have to act like everything's fine when it's not. We don't have to walk on eggshells around someone who's lying to us every day. He was right. For the first time in years, our house felt like a home instead of a stage where we performed the roles of a happy family. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Congratulations on your freedom. You deserve better. M. Mora. She'd refused to let me pay her full fee, claiming that destroying Stephanie and Troy had been payment enough. I looked around our backyard, at the deck I'd built with my own hands, at the garden Jamie and I had planted together, at the house that was finally completely ours. Stephanie had been right about one thing. I did deserve better. I deserved honesty. I deserved loyalty. I deserved a family that didn't lie to me or plot against me or try to burn down everything I'd worked for. And now I had it. Jamie finished his burger and stood up, stretching. I'm going to call Emma, he said. Tell her about the college thing. Good idea. He paused at the back door. Dad, I'm proud of you. For fighting for us. For not giving up. I'm proud of you too, son. For standing by me when it would have been easier to believe her lies. After he went inside, I sat in the gathering darkness and thought about the last few months, the discovery of Stephanie's betrayal, the confrontation at Donovan's, the custody battle, the final desperate attempt to destroy us. It was over now, all of it. Stephanie was in prison, facing a 10-year sentence for attempted homicide. Troy had lost his job, his family, and his freedom. Ashley's Instagram account had been suspended after she was caught spreading lies about me. Everyone who'd participated in the conspiracy to destroy my family had paid the price. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I was looking for. Paul answered on the first ring. How are you holding up? He asked. Good, really good. I wanted to thank you for everything, the cameras, the evidence from Mom's attic, standing by me when things got crazy. That's what family does. I know, but I also know I'm lucky to have you. You're lucky to have gotten rid of her, Paul said. Stephanie was poison, Connor. She was slowly ending everything good about you. He was right. Looking back, I could see how I'd changed during the marriage, how I'd become smaller, more cautious, less confident. I'd started to believe Stephanie's subtle criticisms, her constant implications that I wasn't quite good enough for her. But I was good enough. I was more than good enough. I was a good father, a good provider, a loyal husband. I'd built a successful business with my own hands. I'd raised a son who was smart, honest, and brave enough to stand up for what was right. Stephanie had thrown all of that away for a few months of excitement with a man who'd ultimately proven to be as worthless as she was. Her loss. I finished my beer and went inside. Jamie was on the phone with Emma, laughing about something. The sound filled the house with warmth and life. Tomorrow, I would start looking for a contractor to finish the repairs from the fire. Next week, I would take Jamie on a college tour. Next month, I would start dating again. Carefully, slowly, but with the confidence of a man who knew his own worth. Stephanie had tried to destroy me, but she'd actually freed me. For the first time in 15 years, I was exactly where I belonged.